expressed in this show belong to the person expressing them. They do not purport to reflect the opinions or views of Rancher or any other entity. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of Coffee and Cloud Native. My name is Adrian Goins, and I am thrilled to be here with you today, as you'll probably see workers outside the window, but that's not my fault. They're workering. Well, you know, whatever. Right, here, we're doing a show. It's about stuff. The purpose of this show is to share with you news and interesting content related to Kubernetes and Cloud Native and other things that are orthogonal. Hey, that's the word for the day, orthogonal. And to build a community of people who are interested in using technology to live a better life. If you're watching at all now or in the future, please consider subscribing to the channel. And if you're watching whatever, please click whatever buttons that tell whatever thing you're watching it on that you like it, because I get a little email every night that tells me how many people like my show. No, seriously, because the YouTube algorithm uses that to share it with other people. And then I also use it to figure out like what I'm talking about and what people are actually interested in. There's a community site that's free. I'll start scrolling that across the bottom of the screen as well. And there's a Discord server where live chat happens, and then there's a bot, and then there's a bunch of stuff. Discord's a really great place. There's a lot of conversation that happens there all throughout the day. And yeah, so I encourage you to come and say hello. And in fact, let's see who we've got today. Bala, good morning. Peter Keach, Wojtek. Wojtek leveled up to level 5. Congratulations. Level 5 is like the tier at which you get to post GIFs that the rest of the world actually sees. So watch out. Yeah, Ian, workering. Yes. Wifebot and I always make up words because that's more fun than speaking properly. Oh my gosh, Mac. Mac and the one-liners. I'm telling you, dude, you have a future in stand-up comedy. Oh, zombies. Hey, Wifebot, cool. So who else we got here? Samuel Dan, good morning. Chrysalis. Scrolling back. Vito, hola. Old man with a hat. Always nice to see you. And your hat. Marco. Ariel, good to see you. Glad you're here. Don't go anywhere. Frank. Oh my God, the crazy dog. Okay, that's it. That's all we got for today for saying hello to people. I know there's more of you watching on Twitch and YouTube. Hello to all of you, and thank you for joining us today. Very quickly, some quick news. Yesterday, some of you noticed that I dropped a video on how to troubleshoot and fix NFS in Kubernetes. If you haven't seen that yet, check it out on the YouTube channel. It's about 7 minutes long. And I'm gonna start doing, the show takes a lot of time. And those of you who know me from my previous tutorials know that, well, that's what I used to do. And I haven't done very many of those this year because this is what I'm doing now. And in fact, many of my videos are super outdated and rather embarrassing, but I leave them up there anyway. Wifebot and I figured out recently that we can actually make faster videos if we pay less attention to the production quality. And since what I'm interested in is delivering content, I'm gonna work on getting more videos out there that are basically just gonna be me sitting here talking to you about whatever and then showing you stuff on the screen. No green screen, no crazy titling and whatever, because I wanna get content out to you. So, NFS video, check it out. This week starts the new weekly challenge. We've been doing, so it's policy month. We've been doing, for the last week, we've been doing everything related to like Kyverno or pod security policies or OPA gatekeeper. This week, we're gonna switch over to doing network policy. And so look for a new post on that to drop later on today, giving you suggestions about where you might go with that. And now it's Wednesday. What happens on Wednesday? Continuous inspiration. Maybe I need like a jingle. Continuous inspiration. Today we look inward and share stuff from the CNCN community, either new members who have created a bio for themselves or content created by community members. We have a lot of really smart and talented people in the community, and I encourage all of you to just randomly introduce yourself to other people. Even though we're all a bunch of introverts, there's this whole social networking aspect of the CNCN community site that's designed to build relationships. And we're all sitting in our houses or in whatever place we are. No matter where you are and how open it is, we're still all isolated from one another. So, if it's helpful, use the community to build those relationships that cross borders, that cross lockdowns, that cross everything. Today, I would like to introduce you to Ariel Antigua, who is in the live chat. Everybody say hello. Ariel posted a bio yesterday that got a lot of our attention. So I'll just read what he has here. I'm from the Dominican Republic, working in IT for more than 15 years now. It's funny, for some reason in my mind, Ariel, I have this image of you like that you're in your 20s. I don't know why, but I read that and I was like, oh my gosh, you've been working in IT since you were 10? That's crazy. So infrastructure and networking are his topics of interest, and right now he's working in cybersecurity. We have some cool stuff today about security if it makes it on the show, if we have enough time. And he's looking to get back into infrastructure. Now that's interesting because he has an autonomous system that he runs out of his house, and he actually has a link that he posted last night to what he's got running. Like, this is somebody who says, oh, I would like to get back into infrastructure. What? Like, he has crazy equipment. He's got stuff doing all kinds of things. I saw that you're running something dedicated to SyncThing. I also run SyncThing. I had a Docker container image that I was maintaining for a while, but I fell behind on that. SyncThing is amazing. It's amazing. I use C-File as a Dropbox clone and then SyncThing for all of my local replication here in the LAN. Anyway, Ariel has, oh my gosh. I don't know where you have that, dude, but if it's anywhere in your house, you're probably not getting any sleep at all. So everybody say hello to Ariel, follow him, talk to him, and so on. And now let's get over to the tool. No, why do I always say tool of the day? It's not the tool of the day, it's the A/B test. What's the A/B test? Whoops, that's not the A/B test. Hey, look at that. The collector bots have gathered candidates for the show, and Trufflebot has scored them from 1 to 5 coffees, corresponding to a 75 to 100% probability of being interesting content. That's the thing about machine learning. It's never really guaranteed. It's like, maybe. He'll post them one at a time in the A/B test channel on Discord, and then I'll load them up. Anyone watching live can rate them in Discord, and then the final scores are shown when we move to the next item. The total rating for all items shown on the show is used to rate the show itself, and in the future, I'll use that to retrain the machine learning model. And the cycle begins. So let's see what we got. Oh, I can feel the suspense. We have a lot of stuff coming in today from the security space as well as from the serverless space, because there's a lot of Lambda stuff going on out there since reInvent is sort of happening. Whatever. Here you go. Abusing, whoops, I don't have this showing on the screen. You don't know what I'm looking at. Look at that. Now you do. Abusing Kubernetes with the automountServiceAccountToken. Okay. The automountServiceAccountToken is an interesting thing designed for convenience. If you know about service accounts, when a namespace, I'll just read this little highlighted piece here. When a namespace is created within Kubernetes, the kube controller manager uses the service account controller and the token controller to make sure the service account called default exists with a valid API bearer token. When a pod is created within the new namespace, checks happen and things like that, and then it adds the default service account if one doesn't exist. Now, if the automountServiceAccountToken option isn't explicitly set to false, then the admission controller also adds a volume mount for the service account token to each container within the pod. This results in the namespace secret for the service account token being mounted directly to var run secrets kubernetes.io service account within every running container. Now, this is designed so that if you are running a workload that actually needs to interact with the Kubernetes API, it already has the permissions embedded in it to do so. I don't know about you, but I'm running 0 workloads that need to interact with the Kubernetes API. The person who wrote this article argues that it's bad because if an attacker gains access to a container via some other exploit, they can go trolling and trawling. They can go trawling and seeing, how they can get privilege escalation. There are a couple of examples here in Python about how to exploit this. I fired up a Python container this morning just to see in my default K3s environment what was possible. And I was pleased to find, I made a note on this somewhere, that this actually requires intentionally lax RBAC permissions. Now, lots of Kubernetes distributions particularly ones that are old or ones that are using questionable distros, will have lax permissions. So this is still important. But if you're running K3s, you're okay, because by default, the default service account has basically no permissions. And I try to play with it a little bit more, but regardless, go into your namespaces and just add automountServiceAccountToken false on the default service account, and set that, and then on the default service account, you'll be fine. What's next? Hey, more security stuff. What is this? What is this? What is this? Oh, hey, look, it's making sense of network policies. How apropos. Making sense of network policies and pod security policies. This article actually talks about what I said yesterday, that pod security policies are not necessarily the be all and end all, because largely they only apply to pods. Well, they only apply to pods, and they're difficult to get right. So other solutions like Kyverno and OPA Gatekeeper will get you closer to where you want to be with a lot less headache. This also talks about network policies. And any of you who've run Kubernetes for any length of time know what they are, but whatever, it came up. Network policies are designed for you to control what is allowed to talk to what within your Kubernetes cluster. So you can set your database pods to only listen to traffic from the things that need to talk to the database and not something else somewhere. Similarly, you can take your WordPress pods, for example, and make sure that they can only talk to the database and maybe Memcache if you're using that or whatever. Implementing network policies, it's a little bit of work, but it's really, really good to make sure that things are only able to do what they need to do for their existence. This is what we're going to be working on this week. This is a really basic introduction to it, but I'll have more stuff posted in the community site later today. Oh, this is totally unrelated to anything Kubernetes and Cloud Native, but it's interesting. Regardless, I actually have a standing desk, sort of. You can't see it here. It's like a standing thing that sits on my desk that I can raise and lower, and it's automated, and I would do it now, but I'd probably knock something over and end the show. And I don't use it often enough because it's kind of a pain in the butt. I am genuinely interested in whole desks that raise and lower, because standing for at least a portion of your day is actually really good for those of us who sit and work with these infernal machines. Well, this person bought a hand crank desk. That's just asking for suffering, and then decided to figure out how to automate it so that he didn't have to crank the handle anymore. And he starts out with this little itty bitty tiny motor. That's really funny. Like, look at that little itty bitty tiny thing. And it goes into explaining like torque and RPM and what you need to do to make this stuff actually work. And then rocks on, it's actually, woo! He goes through like deploying Bluetooth and getting it to listen. And then he decided to switch it to responding to voice with Google, whatever the heck he has, Google Smart Home. Do you remember last week when I talked about how, like, when Amazon's, one of their services went down and suddenly, like, people's Roombas didn't work? You're going to deal with the same thing here. Like, he deploys an app on Heroku that connects to a Google Voice, Google Smart Home thing. That's a lot of external dependencies, but not all of us have home labs or environments into which we can deploy our own stuff. So if you have a choice between this and nothing, then this is probably okay. But if you're watching this show, I suspect that you either have or are interested in running your own infrastructure. And at the end of this, so he goes through basically 100% of how to build this. So if you have a hand crank standing desk, I got to show you the other motor that he bought. Remember the first motor? Well, this is what he ended up with. It's just a little bit bigger because he blew out the other one. At the end of this, he said something that actually, okay, well, first of all, Cloud MQTT is a third-party add-on for Heroku that costs $5 a month. Whoever's behind that is a genius, because MQTT is like tiny and trivial, and they probably got I don't even know how many of these stacked on a server, and they're getting people to pay them $5 a month for each of them. So good job until people figure out that they can do it themselves. At the end of this, he says that he has access to a server that he hosts out of a basement somewhere, and he might investigate running Mosquito and Node-RED and then some other stuff. And this, I thought this was interesting because I always think, well, if I didn't have a home lab, I'd put it out in the cloud. But I bet you know somebody who has a home lab, possibly even near you, with capacity. And if you have a friend who has equipment, ask them if you can host it there. Ask them if you can maybe get co-sysop rights on their Kubernetes cluster and then start to build that relationship. And I'll bet you there's people in the community that have home labs that might be willing to help you. So there you go. It started out as an article about how to make a hand crank desk into something else, turned into an article on how to build your own apps, and then turned into Adrian lecturing you on how not to use cloud services because, oh my gosh, the stuff in your house. Dude, if I used a cloud for everything here, then like whenever the internet went out, my whole house would stop working. The word or phrase, the phrase digital twins has been surfacing more and more frequently in the bot output over the last couple of months. And Azure GA'd this. I don't know when they did, but recently enough that this article came out yesterday. Azure Digital Twins allows you to fully replicate in software a physical IoT infrastructure. No, not just IoT, but like a physical environment within which you might have sensors, HVAC controllers, smoke detectors, temperature thing, I don't know, whatever. By replicating it 100%, people are able to do testing on it and determine, airflow, for example, if you talk about HVAC, and Samuel Dan could probably correct anything I say here that's wrong. But imagine that you could do airflow and determine if a piece needs to be replaced, you'll have all the information about what is dependent on that piece. The modeling of this is its own language. So here, the solution from, who are these guys? So Doosan Heavy Industries and Construction developed a digital twin of its entire wind farm or multiple wind farms, allowing operators to remotely monitor equipment performance and predict energy generation based on weather conditions. So they combined real-time and historical IoT, weather, and other operational data with physics and machine learning-based models to accurately predict production output for each turbine in the farm. This as a cloud service makes a lot of sense. And another company later on down in this article talks about how they replicated an entire building that they have in Manhattan. Apparently I didn't highlight that because, here we go. So they replicated this building, and they created, so this shows you how the pieces are linked together for the digital twin stuff, but then they released it all as an open source GitHub repo. So if we jump over to that, then so they created this whole model of stuff between physical infrastructure and then like furniture inside of it. You can model everything. It's crazy. And then all of the relationships and stuff. So this digs in a little bit further to how they're using it. The argument is that, well, maybe you could just do this in like a SQL database, and you can, but that's going to be a lot more maintenance that you have to do manually by just doing the actual replication. And I don't know if there's a connection between the physical infrastructure and like if somebody nukes a sensor or pulls it out, does this have to be updated manually? That seems like such an obvious problem that they've probably fixed it. So expect more veto. Point for veto for distracting Adrian. If you're seeing pixelation, refresh. YouTube has decided that your internet connection is best served by 144p. Did I tell you that my provider does that? My provider will intentionally throttle the beginning of a YouTube download so that YouTube downscales it and they save bandwidth. Yeah. Delta Bravo. Some of you are going to be surprised. that I have this on the show. I cannot pretend that other solutions for interacting with Kubernetes exist besides Rancher. The dashboard space is just getting stupidly crowded. This is not the only one that I have on today. So, whatever. I've never even looked at Lens, but I pulled it down today and I loaded it up and, in a vacuum, I don't really have anything bad to say about it. Other than it's not a freaking IDE. It's a dashboard. But Mirantis decided that they would coin the term Kubernetes IDE and no, but whatever. Beyond that, it's a dashboard. It runs locally instead of in cluster, and they released version 4.0. If you're using Lens, lots of people use it. Lots of people like it. Great. 4.0, Mirantis is the new VMware. So with 4.0, you can now get enterprise support, training, and services for Lens. So basically, if you have Lens deployed, they can give you technical support, professional services, and training. Because if you can't figure out how to use a Kubernetes dashboard, I saw that and I was curious, like, why would anybody need training or technical support on it? And I went to their blog on how to install it, and I realized it's because Mirantis thinks that you're an idiot. And I'm not kidding. So in August, they released a blog about getting started with Lens. This is not anything about Lens. This is just watch out. Like sometimes I talk about companies and you can tell a lot about a company based on how they interact with the environment. In their blog about installing Lens, if you know you need Lens, then you know you have a Kubernetes cluster and you need to talk to this Kubernetes cluster. But apparently you don't know how to make a directory, change into it, download the binary using wget, make the binary executable. You don't know how to install an app on Mac. 100% guarantee that if Mirantis's customers need to understand what CD is, they shouldn't be using Kubernetes. Just saying. Otherwise, Lens 4.0 looks pretty cool. It's a dashboard. Ooh, you guys don't like Lens. Rancher for the win. And actually, it's pretty snappy. If you want something running locally on your machine, if you don't want to have to, do stuff in a web browser, no, I don't have a lot bad to say about it. It's got some little bugs. Somebody went and dug around in 4 open source TCP IP stacks and determined that billions or millions or quintuple quadrazillions of devices are vulnerable. Not that anybody's going to be surprised by that. They did, however, talk about, so if I scroll down here, let's see. So detecting the bugs is a monumental task, primarily because many devices these days don't come with a software bill of materials, and companies don't even know that they're running systems that use one of the 4 TCP IP stacks vulnerable to one of these 33 things. In other words, it's going to be totally busted forever. And we all knew that. So if you're running IoT devices, there's lots of stuff you can do to isolate what they're able to do. And if they get compromised, don't put them on the internet for starters. Put them on their own VLAN, pretend that they're terrible. Don't let them talk to the internet, and so on. There's a 47-page PDF document, but let's just scroll through really quick and look at the high severity items. 9.8, remote code execution. The code for parsing DNS records in DNS response packets sent over NAT64 does not validate the length. Okay, so they can corrupt memory. There was one up higher. Yeah, so here. I can't highlight this because it's an image. Incoming DNS replies are parsed by the DNS client, even if there was not an outgoing query. The DNS transaction ID is not sufficiently random. Provided that the DNS cache is small, then it facilitates DNS cache poisoning attacks. That on its own, DNS cache poisoning, that's an 8.1. But when you combine the fact that the system will process a DNS reply without there having been a query, with this next one, that says the code for parsing DNS records and DNS response packets does not validate the length, then you've got remote code execution. There's a couple others down here, 9.8, also related to DNS, 9.8, along with a bunch of other stuff for DOS attacks, also related to DNS. I bring this on the show because it's not on the show, but I saw last night there's new legislation going through the United States Congress about, or may have even been an executive order that was passed. There's something legislative related to the United States about how the federal government needs to treat IoT devices within the federal government. The objective there is that the US government will enforce, I want to say restrictions, but that's not the right thing. That there will be criteria, that there will be things that IoT providers have to do if they want to get their stuff in the federal government, and that by forcing them to do that, it will trickle down to the rest of us. I have about this much confidence that that's actually going to work, but suffice to say that we all know that IoT is busted, and now people who can do something about it are noticing too. Oh my gosh, it's already 9:56? Wow. Whoa. Oh man, smash my desk, make a bunch of noise. I was just gonna keep going. Well, we got this one. Injecting secrets into Kubernetes pods using Vault. I love me some Vault. I do not inject secrets into Kubernetes pods. So for me, I thought this was interesting because I do like things that say, hey, if you want to do this, well, here's how you can go and do it. And then I can learn without having to also figure out. This particular article, you see, I throw stuff on the show that's like, here's basic information, but a little bit of extra goodness. This one shows you how to set up Vault, how to set it up so that your Kubernetes cluster can pull secrets from it, and then it throws in Spinnaker. And they're like, why are we throwing in Spinnaker? Because Spinnaker can help you deploy the same application manifest in different environments, but using various Vault secrets. So it can mutate your requests. Can you think of anything else that might be able to mutate your requests? Spinnaker can mutate your requests. So you can have Spinnaker set annotations in your manifest depending on the environment, and then you can use Spinnaker to control the service account. The idea of using a tool so that you have to do less work, I am 100% in support of. I don't use Spinnaker. There are lots of other things that can do this, but think about that. Like if you're doing something and you need to do the same thing more than twice, figure out a way to automate it so that you can go do something else. I was explaining something to somebody yesterday, and one of the things I said was that we don't need to create more work for ourselves. Like we already have enough to do. The idea is create less work. And in a tweet that went out yesterday, I said that if you can't be replaced, you can't be promoted. So my objective is to automate myself out of a job. Everything that I do, I want to figure out how to automate because then I can go do something else. I like that idea. Hey, once again, today's show had an average rating of 4 coffees. Good job, Trufflebot. Can we get a round of applause for Trufflebot, please? Trufflebot, the true star of the show. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, it's so late. Today's tool of the day comes to us, well, it came to me from Nuno in our community. Now, this wasn't written by Nuno. It was written by a friend or colleague or something. I first learned about it a couple of days ago, but I was asked to wait. I was put under embargo. I feel so much like the press. I was asked to wait until they actually dropped it out in the marketplace. This page doesn't actually have anything interesting on it other than you can go and install it, but this is the repo itself. With this, as you can see in there, what? There's a, oh, I clicked the wrong thing. Sorry. I clicked the wrong thing. This is what I wanted to click. I clicked on kind. Sorry. Here, this is why I wanted to show this. It's got this little whatever Giphy thing. You can now deploy and manage K3d development clusters from directly inside of VSCode. K3d is K3s wrapped in a container runtime, Docker, but don't tell anyone. So that you can deploy development Kubernetes clusters locally on your machine, multi-node clusters that are isolated from other test clusters. It's kind of like kind, but uses K3s and is like stupidly fast. Now you can do it from within VS Code. This is, of course, like all things, alpha and subject to change and not fit for production, but super cool. They dropped it yesterday. If you used K3d, JVB, check this out. If you use K3d, use VS Code, take this for a spin, give them some feedback, open issues with anything that you find, and if you're a developer and there's a feature that's missing, make that feature live, and then contribute it back. So there you go. That's today. K3d support for VS Code. I always got to figure out where my thumbs go on the screen. All right, of course, that's the end of the show. 32 minutes. Yeah, because why should we ever end anything on time? That's it. That's it. That's it. And that's all we have today. Thank you so much for watching, for tuning in, for dealing with me. Apparently I drank too much coffee this morning. Links to everything I talk about on the show go up in the free community site at community.cncn.io after the show ends. Come join us. Not everyone's as crazy as I am, but some of them are. Community members get early access to the links, the video replay, and other exclusive content. It's totally free. It's growing every day. I see people are already saying goodbye because you got to go to meetings. Goodbye. If you have something you'd like me to talk about, post it on the community site, mention me, or ping me on Discord or Twitter, and I'll take a look. Have a great day, everyone. Keep learning. I will see you in the next show. I will keep waving my finger at you because... sorry. Bye. Wait, how do we end? Stay caffeinative.